This is how to fix the sleep spell in 5th edition D&D. I have done it. I've been to the mountain, brother. Sorry about that. I've been watching a lot of 80s wrestling lately. Everyone knows the sleep spell in 5th edition D&D is broken. When I play a wizard, I don't even bother with the sleep spell. It's too unreliable. When you cast a sleep spell, you do it to kind of avoid confrontation or maybe thin out the herd. There are too many variables in this spell as it is written. The spell says, this spell sends creatures into a magical slumber. Roll 5d8. Total is how many hit points of creatures the spell can affect. Creatures within 20 feet of a point you choose within a range are affected in ascending order, ignoring unconscious creatures. I always ignore unconscious creatures. Starting with the creature with the lowest current hit points. Each creature affected by the spell falls unconscious until the spell ends. The sleeper takes damage, or someone uses an action to shake or slap the sleeper awake. Subtract each creature's hit points from the total before moving on to the creature with the next lowest hit points. A creature's hit points must be equal to or less than the remaining total for the creature to be affected. Jeremy Crawford has stated that the sleep spell is a deprecated design, but I would counter it's broken. But what makes it broken? It's too cumbersome to use. You have to roll from a pool of points and then subtract the hit points of the creatures from that pool. The person casting the spell doesn't know everybody's hit points. The only person who knows this is the dungeon master. So now it's up to the dungeon master to start doing some math, to look at the hit points of the creatures and start subtracting lowest to the highest to see who all is affected. Also, if the dungeon master doesn't want his creatures to be affected by the sleep spell, he can just fudge those numbers, the hit points of that, and say, sorry. You could say a lower number of them are affected or none of them are affected, just saying how sorry they have too many hit points. The balance of this spell swings very heavily toward the dungeon master. Let's look at how Shadow Dark handles the sleep spell. You weave a lulling spell that fills a near-sized cube extending from you. Now in Shadow Dark, near size is about 30 feet. Choose a number of living creatures in the area up to your level. Those creatures fall into a deep sleep if they are level 2 or less. Vigorous shaking or being injured wakes them. That's it. It's the whole spell right there. I love the simplicity of how this is written. It is definitely a lot less cumbersome. However, the balance swings heavily toward the player, at least at low levels. And I don't like the fact that a monster over level 3 just isn't affected. So after level 3, the sleep spell is like completely useless if all the monsters are level 3 or bigger. The perfect sleep spell should be something desirable to use, and then it has a good chance of working. It isn't something mysterious, you don't know the information you need to know whether or not it's going to work, like someone's hit points. Can you imagine this working in real life? Pardon me, how many hit points do you have? I'm feeling pretty good today, maybe like 30 hit points. Then sleep. At the same time, it needs to be fair for the DM as well. And doesn't just work all the time and put all his monsters to sleep. It's because a wizard is high enough a level. It needs to continue being a viable spell as the caster levels up. I think Shadow Dark's mechanic just needs to be tweaked a little bit. My version of the sleep spell is this. It has a 30-foot range, and you pick a point within that range. The spell has a 20-foot area of effect around that point. Choose a number of creatures in that radius up to your level. Each creature in that radius must make a wisdom saving throw with a DC of 15 at level 1, or be rendered unconscious. This DC goes up for every level of the caster all the way to 20. I think this is a pretty fair version of the spell. It's pretty good for both the player and the dungeon master. It scales, and I think it makes sense that when you're level 20, it's most likely to work. Now, I know what you're thinking, Dungeon Master. You're like, oh, great, so level 20 plus caster is going to put my dragon to sleep. But remember this. You've got legendary actions and things like that you can counteract that with. But also, a lot of the higher CR monsters have pluses to their saving throws. For example, the adult red dragon has a +7 to its wisdom saving throw. So that means it can roll at least a 13 and still win. Let me know in the comments if this sleep spell is fixed or not fixed. Class dismissed.